Here follows an extract from my book Artful Designs, available from Amazon. Chapter 9, Part 2. Drew and Benedict stayed chatting. I've asked Rick to come over. It's quintessentially British in Mossleigh today, with the croquet crown and the floral displays. He really should see it. This is English rural life at its best. A bit cliché maybe, but none the worse for that, said Drew. It's a good job that the tournament is scheduled for early summer, or he'd have missed his chance, said Benedict. When does he fly back home? Oh, there's no rush. He's with us for the foreseeable future, I should say. He's got the chance of taking up a research post at MAG, and I think he's accepted it. I know that he intends to, and I presume that the formalities have been processed. He must have changed his mind then. I spoke to Rick the other day, just for some background on the Constable case, and he said that he'd be sure to leave me a forwarding address as he was planning to go home very soon. Did he? How strange, said Drew. I hope the grant didn't fall through. He'll be so disappointed. I know he likes it in England, and he has a special affection for Mag, so he'll be sad to leave. Did you know that he stayed here many years ago as a young student? Apparently, he was on a student exchange programme when he was working on his master's dissertation. I didn't know that. It's a small world, isn't it? Benedict seemed to ponder on this last bit of information and was mulling over several implications which it may or may not hold. That was the trouble with his job. Nothing could stay as innocent as it seemed, and it bred an inherent distrust. However, his face cleared as he recognised Jonty waving as he approached from the opposite end of the field. That is, he presumed that it was Jonty. What he saw was a group of figures, all carrying musical instruments of varying sizes. One of the group was waving heartily, and although his eyesight wasn't as sharp as it used to be, it had to be Jonty gesticulating wildly. He waved back enthusiastically and relished the introduction to Jonty's fellow musicians. He was looking forward to spending the day with his nephew and knew by stereotype that his brass-playing friends would be notoriously easy to get along with, especially when a bar featured in the equation. Although his more mature years meant that his distance vision was diminished, the benefit of such maturity meant that his advanced career easily allowed him the ability to pay for more than his fair share at the Badger. To a group of jobbing musicians, this would make him an exceptionally welcome member to their group and would encourage them not to mind his encumbered musical ability. He'd already organised with Arthur to set up a tab to his account and also requested some of Edward's choice bar meals to be thrown into the mix. He figured that he could absorb the shock and considered it a fair price to be admitted into such distinguished musical society. Saying goodbye to Drew, he marched off to join his nephew and new friends with an unusual jauntiness in his step. The sequence and projected times for the games had been posted, but most of the contestants had gathered for the opening of the tournament. Darcy and May stood behind a table on which stood the coveted trophy. A miniature silver croquet mallet rested at an oblique angle, and a silver crown was fixed as though hanging on the edge of the handle. Along the plinth were rows of the names of the contestants who had won and subsequently handed on each year. The lineage of victors stretched back over many years. At either side of the main trophy were two silver-plated miniatures of the trophy, which could be retained permanently. At either end of the long table rested two magnificent bouquets supplied by Nicola Farrington, proprietor of the village florist shop. Not being content with a degree in floristry, Nicola was a newly fledged RHS winner, and her increasing level of skill and creativity was evident in the sumptuous displays which would also be given to the winning couple. Ringing the silver service bell, loaned from Beth's hallway, May officially opened the tournament. The two referees, in almost white lab coats, led the first four couples to their courts. Terry leaned on Natalie's arm as he crossed the grass to the court. A seat in the centre of the taped court edge meant that he could sit comfortably all day and keep a sharp eye on proceedings. Darcy had been provided with a similar convenience, but it was doubtful that she would make much use of the provision. Even at this early stage, she was stalking the players up and down the court, which was particularly off-putting for the novices who were chalked up to play these opening games. Although these early games were entertaining, with mallets striking haphazardly and red or yellow balls veering off indiscriminately, they weren't particularly captivating, and visitors began to wander around the other amusements available. Emma took her daughter through the paces on the knockabout court, while her husband Nathaniel sat making a daisy chain to crown her as victor, regardless of the hoops missed and mallets manhandled. The WI refreshment tent did a roaring trade. Cake and sandwich plates magically restocked thanks to the previous week of busy baking from the WI members. A few craft stalls gave a pleasant diversion and filled charity tins with notes and coins. Many of the items were rare finds of old-school skill and were going for a song in aid of a good cause. The newly formed swing band were obviously in the mood, judging by the gusto of the performance and the extravagant ad-lib sections. And the open trombone case was steadily filling with a regular flow of notes and pennies as a testament to the visitors' relish of their performance. All proceeds were to be donated to the WI's chosen charities. The afternoon wore on and the volunteers changed shifts. Beth handed over the teapot to another pair of willing hands and hurried to the croquet courts to be in time to see Drew and Richard win the toss to break. Drew chose to play yellow. They were playing against Theo and Sally, who had proved to be deceptively good players, having hidden their light under a bushel until it was time to shine. This was the semi-final, and they got to this stage with relative ease. The band had stopped playing so that Jonty and Benedict could join the spectators. Even Sergeant Maddox was neglecting his duty and was standing with Hetty, Nathaniel and Emma to watch. The game passed without much comment until a groan broke the tense silence as Drew made a push instead of making a clean shot. He raised his hand to confess and acknowledge the fact before the referee made comment. Theo took up his advantage and pegged out his first ball. Determined to not let his teammate down, Drew redoubled his efforts and won a bonus stroke for a roquet. Balls inevitably veered off court, to be returned one length of a mallet into the boundary, and balls played out of turn were returned to the status quo ante as before the mishap. The noise from the spectators rose and fell, from murmurs of approval to groans of disappointment as the tide for victory rose and fell. It was a closely matched game and took some time to conclude. The concurrent match had finished a while ago, and whoever won this game would face Nicola's fiancé Gareth and C.I. Buckley in the final. It was down to the last hoop when Drew and Richard's doom was set. Unfortunately, nobody but Beth and Benedict noticed that Theo's winning stroke was a disqualifying double tap. The crowd was less than silent by this point, and the duplicate noise went unheard, but Beth and Benedict saw the repeated action which gave extra impetus for Theo's ball to peg out first. A roar of applause overtook the competitors, and Drew and Richard gave hearty congratulations to Sally and Theo. Neither Terry nor Darcy, who had joined in watching since the other quarter concluded, had seen the misdemeanour, and there was nothing that the witnesses could do but nurse their disgust. As they watched the final match, Beth recounted that final stroke to Drew, who just shrugged his shoulders as there could be no redress. Justice was served in a fashion, as C.I. Buckley and Gareth were on top form, and Sally and Theo knew that they were out of their depth. Theo tried a change of strategy by playing a series of scatter shots. It was to be presumed that the thinking behind this tactic was that, if they couldn't place their own balls well enough to compete, they could at least scatter their opponent's balls to a less dangerous position. However, such a negative state of play is rarely productive, and the winning couple were too ahead of the game and too adept to be thwarted. Drew reassured Beth that the double tap was irrelevant, as they would have lost in the final anyway. C.I. Buckley had achieved what she'd come for, and Gareth was thrilled to be on the winning team. The Chief Inspector happily accepted the complimentary bouquet, but Gareth didn't think that Nicola would want her own flowers back, and so presented them to Darcy with gratitude for her role as referee. As Beth and her family walked back to the house, they discussed the highs and lows of the day. "I'm sorry that Rick didn't come today. He's missed a rare opportunity to see Britain at its best," said Drew. "Yes, it's a shame. I'm sad that Matt couldn't come either. I know he wanted to hear Benji play his sax," said Beth. Matt was Beth and Drew's youngest son. He'd been abroad on business but had hoped to attend the festivities as soon as he got off the plane. On entering the lounge, they encountered his long figure stretched out, fast asleep on the sofa. Jet lag had obviously got the better of him. This state of affairs wasn't to Primrose's satisfaction though, and, ecstatic at finding that Uncle Matt had come to visit, she pounced on him with shrieks of delight, soon rearranging matters to suit her liking. For the full book of Artful designs, available in paperback or as an ebook, follow the link in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.